Madam Chair, we have a quorum. We still have some technical difficulties, but I think we should proceed with the meeting. Director Collier is not here today, so you can proceed with reading the preamble.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right, we'd like to welcome to the July 8th Landmarks Commission meeting. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 emergency declarations, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meeting according to Robert's Rule of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to taking any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and the mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. We will be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter, and those will be acknowledged and entered into the record. We'd like to call the July 8th, 2021 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Bailey.
Here.
Mr. Bonezzi.
Here.
Mr. Kalikia.
Here.
Director Collier. Mr. Dreyer.
Here.
Councilman Jones. Mr. Strickland.
Here.
Mr. Tarasik.
Here.
Ms. Trott.
Here.
Also in attendance today from our staff are Carl Burgess, who is hosting the meeting, Ava Schmidt, who is our AmeriCorps member, and Kevin Roberts, who is our representative from the Law Department. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Little housekeeping is that the facilitator controls your slides, so please announce when you would like them to be advanced. And Carl, just for your knowledge, since I'm on the web version versus the app version, I cannot see the chat and the participant panel at the same time. So please let me know if I'm missing something verbally versus through the chat, or just ping me. Okay, so we will start with our certificates of appropriateness. We would ask that the first presenter use the raise hand function so that your microphone can be unmuted. Please state your name for our records and tell us about your project. We will begin with the Burgess Grocery Building located at 1406 West 6th Street. Mural for lots of letters who do a love the tour.
Hi, this is Rachel Pollack, and I am a board member with Graffiti Heart. Tara, did you want to say anything?
I'll let you go ahead and then I'll
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we've been here before, so a couple of you might have seen our request for the ghost mural a few weeks ago, and we just wanted to get this updated. So next slide. This is the Wordsmith tour that Graffiti Heart is hosting this year, installing approximately 15 plus murals all across Cleveland, one in Lakewood and one in Cleveland Heights as well. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Like we said before, Cleveland was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And we can move on to the next slide. If you guys want to go over anything, please tell me to stop. But I know that we've seen this presentation before. We're just looking at a new mural today. These are examples of Wordsmith's art. Some of these will be going into Cleveland here. Next slide. Next slide. Like I said, we're doing a How Do I Love Thee tour. It's a Graffiti Heart production. It's a gift to Cleveland and the community from Graffiti Heart. We can move on to the next slide. Today, we're going to be looking at number 7, which is in the Warehouse District. And it's going to be the new location and identified wall is going to be on the side of Johnny's. If you want to move to the next slide. This is the Burgess building, number 7, like we said, side of Johnny's. Next slide. The identified wall is right here. It's going to be under the for lease sign. However, the for lease sign will be removed or relocated rather to a different portion of the building so that the only thing you'll see on that wall is our mural. You can go to the next slide there. It is going to be about 12 feet. And if you can imagine without that for lease sign, we have asked if it's a possibility to move the or resize it to a 15-foot sign just so that it, increases the space there. Wordsmith has agreed to look into getting a new stencil made because I guess he only has a 12-foot one, but we've asked if it's possible if he can give us a 15-foot one for that particular space. Just letting you guys know. And next slide, if there is one. That's it. So this is just a different wall that we've identified in place of where the ghost mural was going to be, as he's no longer going to be doing that mural. And that's all.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have feedback from the city?
I would like to speak. I was not in attendance at the Historic Downtown Design Review Committee, but I would agree with their comments about the red typewriter. My concern is that the red will get lost into the natural color of the brick because it doesn't have the same contrast that his standard black typewriter would. But I do, the comments are up on the screen as well from that committee. They were hoping for a larger mural when the broker sign is removed, which Rachel did address. They said the red typewriter is not as visible as black, and they wanted to know if the conduit pipe that's shown in the picture could be painted out as well, which I didn't hear that addressed, but that's the pipe right next to where the mural would be placed. So other than the color of the red, that was my only concern. I'm supportive of the project. I did have a question about the width. Rachel addressed the height, currently being 12 feet and possibly being increased to 15 feet. So it's more in scale with the building. But I did want to know what the actual width of the piece would be as well.
Got you. I'm not exactly sure what the width would be if it were increased to 15 or what it even is at 12 feet. But we can ask Tommy. She's traveling today, so I'm not sure how to handle that exactly. But in addition, in reference to the color, we have discussed that with Wordsmith as well. And the reason why it's red is it sticks with his theme of love, red love. And he's very confident that he's used this red before and that it does show up on brick. But as a courtesy to us and to Cleveland, if he gets here and it's not exactly popping how he thought it would be, given the material on the surface, he will change it to a black or a more visible color.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for that feedback. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Hi, Molly Crawford, representing Historic Gateway Neighborhood Corporation. So you pretty much covered everything that our committee talked about with the red color, and hoping for it to be larger once the broker sign is moved. The conduit being painted was just kind of a recommendation that our committee thought would be good, because I think that the conduit pipe does detract from the mural, just that it's distracting to the eye. But it wasn't a firm recommendation or anything like that. But yeah, we approved it with consideration for color and size.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. We'll now open the floor for commission comments and questions. Comments and questions from the commission?
I have a comment. I was trying to find my ways here. I find the signs appropriate because I'm looking at the comparison to the awning and the window on the left. But I'm looking at the location of the typewriter too low to the ground. If it can just be raised up and have it in coordination to the window and the awning. If it can just be in line with the window and the awning. If there's any reason why it's that low. I understand the for sale lease sign is right there. That can be raised up. Can it be in line with the awning in the bottom of the window? The size of it, I think, is appropriate in in relations to the awning and the window on the left.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that there was a reason why it was so low. But obviously we would want some appropriate feng shui to go on where it's more centered with the wall itself and the window and the storefront.
All right. Thank you for that feedback and question. Mr. Bonezzi, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd agree with, I have Google Maps open, and I think if I counted the number of courses right, from the sill of the window to the top of where the transom is around 15. So I think getting it between those levels will be kind of perfect at 15. I personally would agree with, I know it's kind of been whipped away, but the kind of painting that line of the conduit, that's my personal preference, would be to paint that out, just because the hard line dividing this kind of like nice artwork that's kind of going to be framed and it's going to be in line with the windows, I think that would detract. So my personal recommendation would be to also paint that conduit out. But other than that, I think it's a great other spot for the mural. The day of technical difficulties here.
Yeah, I think we lost Julie.
This is Bob Strickland. If we lost Julie, I'll just jump in while we're waiting to get her back. I really like this mural, and I agree with the concept of testing the red color first, because I really enjoy the red color and understand its use in this theme. And then if it doesn't work, the artist has agreed to change the color if necessary. And can you confirm that the building owner has been approached with a request to paint out the conduit? And the last question I have is, can you remind us of what the duration of this installation is planned to be? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not, like I said, Stami's out of town right now, so I'm not really sure how the conduit was addressed in the last meeting or if it's been addressed with the building owner. My feeling is that given like graffiti art in general is based on, you know, putting murals on the existing portion of the wall and making it more gritty, I guess. So I'm not really sure if we'll be able to do the conduit, but I will ask Stami and we'll revert back to the commission just to let you guys know if that's even a possibility with the owner, or if this is just a recommendation that we'll have to consider, but maybe not be able to do. However, I will say that in reference to your next question, which was, remind me. Sorry.
I agree with the concept of using the red color initially and just seeing, you know, if it does indeed pop on the in contrast with the brick. But I had a question. I just needed a reminder about what the duration for this installation.
Yes, the dates. So Wordsmith will actually be here. I just pulled up my calendar because I just got to make sure I have the dates correct. But he arrives into Cleveland on Thursday the 5th. He will be here from August 6th through August 13th. And over the course of that week, we'll be, you know, installing the 15 plus murals all over.
And how long is it planned to remain in place?
10 plus years. So the paint that we're using is bucket paint, Loxon, and the words will be spray paint with a stencil application. It takes about 4 to 6 hours to paint. Most of it is the dry time for the page before the letters can be applied. But the piece should wear for up to 10 years and can wear longer with proper care. We do recommend for these types of surfaces that a coating of Sherwin-Williams UV coating goes on after the piece is cured.
Mr. Strickland, Molly from the Warehouse District. I know that the building owner has agreed to move the brokerage sign, but I don't believe that he's been approached about the conduit just yet.
All right. As was suggested, I'd say just keep the commission staff informed as to what the final disposition is once the owner spends that request.
I believe Mr. Tarasik was next.
Yes, thank you. I just want to take a moment. I agree with my fellow commission members here. I think the preference of the conduit being painted would add a nice framing, if you will, to the artwork. But I think nevertheless, even without it, it does add a nice framing regardless. The size of it is appropriate. Personally, I wouldn't mind it being larger as well. However, as other comments were made, more centered within that space, again, as a personal preference, I think would look much better. And I agree with Mr. Strickland that the red, I think, does fit very nice with the theme as far as the words that are on there on the paper. But if it does not pop out, if you will, then having at the discretion of the artist is fine with me. But I think it's a great project like the other ones, and looking forward to seeing it.
I am back. Also apologize. I am joining via my phone because my computer seemed to have frozen up. So I don't, if there's additional questions or comments.
Adrian, did you have another comment? If not, I believe we lost the chair again. Mr. Kalikia, can you take over?
I'm actually,
And,
I'm
you're
trying
still
to,
there.
I'm here. Yes, it's just not cooperating. So
There are no other comments at this time. I think we should call for a vote.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
It's Bob Strickland. I'll move to approve the project as presented, agreeing with the proposed increase in size to 15 feet in height and centering the artwork so it's framed within the that space between the window and the conduit and slightly higher. That's
We
my
have a-
motion.
We have a motion with some conditions. Do we have a second?
This is
I'll
Rachel.
second that.
I'll second.
Oh, we both did. Oops.
All right, well, we have 2 seconds, which is always great. Any further discussion? No? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Bonazzi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasic,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing the installation.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our next applicant located at, let's see, here we go. Euclid Apartments, SS Craig Building on 2015 East 4th Street. Rooftop deck and entrance door.
Good morning. This is Daniel Sirk, SA Group. I'll be presenting today. SA Group is located at 1322 Old River Road, Cleveland, Ohio, 44113. This project is a portion of a multi-stage project with MRN, who it's been pioneers in infill residential. This goes hand in hand with a project at the New England building, the 629 building, to enhance the facilities for the tenants by introducing a fitness center. And this project is to provide the occupants of this building an exterior space that they currently do not have, overlooking East 4th, the vibrancy of East 4th. So as you can see, it's located on East 4th, just near Nick's place, near Pickwick and Frolic. And if you move along, Carl, this is the existing condition of the roof area. You can see Nick's beacon there at the Pickwick sign. And this is the space that the owner would like to convert into a outdoor terrace. Keep moving along, Carl. Yeah. So there's the space, and there's the view above Pickwick, and you can see the shot that we have right now, the space that we're talking about. If you keep moving along, this is a basic floor plan. I think that the renderings will be more illustrative for how this works, but basically the photographs that you saw will be overbuilding this with the structure to get the loads down to the columns and building, and also to properly waterproof the area and also accommodate ADA accessibility from the end of the existing corridor. We'll also be rehabilitating the management office and locating it directly adjacent to the terrace as part of their marketing approach. If you can move along, Carl. So here's a view looking from the extreme corner back towards the other facilities. As you can see, it's mostly to build a clean platform surface where tables and chairs and vegetation can be laid out. And one of the things I wanted to point out was when we met with Historic Gateway with Tom Stravinsky's group, we had the canopy structure that's currently shown in the back to the front. The owner was interested because when we were up there on a sunny day, it can get a little warm. So they wanted to create a sunshade. We had that sunshade all the way extremely to the western edge, which would make that structure very visible from the street. So with Don's help and talking with Carl early on, there was a little concern that that structure would not be appropriate. So in working with that, we presented this to Historic Gateway, where the structure was moved to the rear. And at the end of the presentation, I'll show you a sightline study that this will not be visible from the ground level. So if you move along through the photos, you can see that at night, we'll have the lighting strung from the existing building across. And these are different views of the plaza. One thing I'll point out in this slide that did come from Tom's group was we had the door right where it says East 4th, the door leading back into the building. We had that shorter. We did not have that up to the current head height of that window. So they recommended, and we've done, introduced a transom above that window so that when we punch out the existing window, we're using the exact shape and everything lines up. So that was a good catch by Tom's group, and we've made that change. And it did garner a unanimous approval from Gateway. Again, another view of the evening, and then a view looking back from under the sunshade structure. And that same view at night. And so these are the views of concern. On the left is what we have today above Pickwick. And what we're proposing after is just what we would see is the hand railing, leading edge, light aluminum frame with cable rail. And that structure that we had proposed at the leading edge is no longer visible. The sightline study does show that, and I'm not sure if, Carl, you have the ability to zoom in on the sightline study or if everyone's seen it, but it does show that the structure, approximately, say, 12 feet tall, will not be visible from the sight line. And we've also tilted the rail, the hand railing back in an angle to that, so that that gives a little more protection for people by tilting the top of the rail, and sets that back a little bit more. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. I'm open for questions.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Hi, Molly Crawford from the Historic Gateway Neighborhood Corporation. So yeah, they addressed all of our concerns. Our biggest concern was the height of the door not aligning with the window. And the transom is a great fix to that. Our biggest concern with that was just infill brick and that not matching the existing conditions. Our other concern was that the railing might be not protective enough, but they've reassured us that it's a 4-inch gap, so like no tables or chairs or anything like that could get through it that could hurt somebody. And our other question was just about ADA accessibility, and we were reassured that that will be maintained as well. So our committee approved it. We liked it. We think it'll be good.
Thank you for that summary. Do we have questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Bailey?
Hi. I really like these exterior designs. Looks well aligned. I just have a few questions. What type of materials on the ground? I didn't hear too much about the material used on the ground, what it is. And also privacy rights, what's on the ground level. I'm assuming the center door is where these residents gonna come out. That's the sharing. And also controlling of the light for privacy for the other residents' house, that's gonna be in control. And also water flow, just because this is a roof, obviously, how's the water is being controlled on the roof, and how, curiosity, the technical aspects of it.
Okay, I'm happy to respond, Ms. Bailey. Starting off with the concern, and as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the corner unit in this, right, not by the door that says East Fourth, but right next to it, that was a unit for rent, which was unoccupied. And so in working with the owner, that's why we're moving their leasing office to that location. And then what we're going to do is take the current leasing office down the hall and convert that back to a unit. So we're not losing any units, we're just moving their offices down here. There's 3 people that work in there, and that's where people come to sign their leases and, you know, any maintenance issues that they need. So that will not be a unit. And the other 2 windows that you see lead into an egress stair. So those aren't units either. So that you picked up on a very good concern that we had. I don't think this would have been successful if there was a unit right next to the deck. With respect to the material and how we handle that, my office has done several decks like this. Basically what you see is all a raised platform. It's a wood material that is raised by a superstructure of steel. And each one of those panels that you see can actually be lifted up and moved out of the way for maintenance of drainage. This roof actually only had like 1 finger drain way in the corner. That was always a challenge for the ownership to keep clean because it was the only drain. We've introduced below and under this structure additional drainage points to handle that so that these panels can come off and then the drains can be checked for that. So basically a brand new roof is happening underneath all of this. And luckily it looks like whoever designed the building originally did stub the columns up for us, which was nice. That you can see right where that steel column is in the middle of this picture is sitting right on top of an existing column that is bumped up from the structure. So it worked out really well. It took a lot of tweaky design. The engineer from WHS was excellent in working with the existing structure. And I think we've hit all the marks on this. This owner is we've assisted with other buildings up in Uptown and here at the New England building where these issues have occurred. And we've deployed these same techniques and they're working well.
And what type of material the green space is? To imitate grass.
Yeah, that's like a grass, simulated grass material.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Strickland, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The architect has answered one of my questions. I wanted confirmation that the area would be totally re-roofed prior to this installation, and he had confirmed that that would be the case. I think it's a wonderful project. It's going to be a fantastic amenity for the residents of these buildings in this area. The planters, I assume that those plantings are natural plantings. Is there an opportunity to add additional planters to get additional natural green space in the area?
There would be, as you can see, as we've located the larger ones towards the perimeter where there's we can tie back to the existing building structurally. But yes, there is. How the furniture is actually all going to be laid out may be a little bit more of a game time decision. I know that we'd want to keep anything away from the perimeter so as not to impact the historic nature. But yes, there would be opportunity to add more of those types of things. And as you know, as spaces evolve, as the use starts to come together, we could definitely add additional plantings. And we do show some up against the existing building as well that will grow over time.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
Concept where you just, you can test the space initially
Right.
and then see how it works. Are there any plans for entertainment like amenities accommodated it within the space, you know, a portable bar, that type of thing? Has that been thought about? And do you have water to the space for irrigating these plants?
The, right now, I have to confirm exactly if these plantings will require a drip irrigation. I don't believe that they will. We were careful in selecting things that would work appropriately in the size of the pots that we have. But I'll write that down, that we should confirm if drip irrigation is necessary. And then tying this together, if there were events, they would probably, this really is intended for the occupants, for a space for them to go and set things up. But if events were hosted, the marketing office right next door has those facilities available. So if they were going to serve drinks or something like that, it would be an extension of the marketing. Say that they were going to run an event where, you know, they wanted to do a leasing push. They could definitely support something out of that room. And that's another reason why it's directly adjacent to this.
Yeah, this is such an attractive space. I anticipate that it's going to be heavily utilized, and I can see the residents wanting to use it for entertainment of various size groups. So just something to think about to really enhance the space. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. Just standing up there and looking forward to East 4th being back to the vibe. I could see it in the evenings as being a really nifty space to hang out before going to a ball game or something like that. Just another space along East 4th to be able to hang out.
Thanks for that feedback. Sorry, I was on mute talking. Mr. Trosick,
Oh,
I
go
believe
ahead,
you're
Julie.
next. Thanks for filling in for me, Dan. Mr. Trosick, I
I just
believe
felt like I
you're
needed to cover some dead air there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I agree with Mr. Strickland. I mean, this was an exciting project. You know, there at one time, and I'm personally a big fan of rooftop venues, and especially downtown. I think they're just maybe even underutilized, the opportunities downtown for that. And I know at one time, you know, across the street there, that the Foundation Room has the rooftop, Greenhouse had the rooftop. A little further down the street, Red has a rooftop as well. But I agree with you. You know, when that vibe gets back to East 4th, and again, with Mr. Strickland's comment, you know, that I think it's naturally going to lend itself to more of an entertainment type of venue as well. So that consideration, I think, is going to naturally happen once that vibe gets back to that East 4th corridor. But no, I think it's a very exciting project, and again, like the previous presentation, I'm looking forward to seeing this.
excellent. Thank you, Mr. Trosick. Mr. Menezzi?
I don't really have many more comments to add other than I'm very jealous and I would like you to come to my apartment down the block. No, I think it's going to be a fabulous project, especially for the people who live there. So I'm excited to see it. Well, I won't actually really get to see it, but because of the sight lines, but you know what I mean.
Excellent. I think everyone has covered my comments. I think it's a great proposal. I think it's a great addition to the area. I appreciate your sensitivity to the sight lines and visibility, and just confirm you have water, all the things that are needed to maintain it long term. Are what I just encourage you to focus on, so that it is a continuous asset to the area. So with that, thank you for everyone's patience with my technical difficulties. Would someone like to put forward a motion?
I make a motion. The motion is to approve the applicant as presented.
Thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Alan, I'll second.
Thank you for the second. So we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasic,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. We look forward to the addition to the area.
Thank you all members of the commission, and a special thanks to Carl and Don for giving us the suggestions to before we brought this to you. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, you too. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness, and we'll now move on to our concept plan reviews. We'll begin with our first applicant located at 3811 Clinton Avenue, renovation of the Martin residence.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. I'm Jason Rohal, the architect and future neighbor of the case at hand right here. Thank you for pulling up the site plan. This is an interesting scenario here, and I've been working with the Block Club and Ohio City regarding this project, as it involves the renovation of an existing structure shown on the southern portion of the site plan here, as well as the new construction of a single-family dwelling on the site. So what we've gone through conceptually with the Block Club and Ohio City Incorporated, I will add that we did receive approval from the Block Club for the proposed plan is, one, to alter the home that is currently sitting on Vine Court, shown at the southern portion of the site. You can see in this site plan right here the outline of the portion that is proposed to be demolished. This the whole home at one point in time was up for discussion for being demolished, and our contractor and the Block Club and myself worked together to find a way to save the home and convert it to a carriage home. So the function of the home that is located at the southern portion here, the first floor, about half or 2/3 of it would be for a garage accessed off of Vine Court. You can see there's an additional parking space located at the eastern side of the parcel, with slight modifications there, and as well as the conversion of the second floor of the home to an apartment to be used by the homeowners living at the northern portion of the lot here. And the new construction right here is shown. Setbacks are shown, and if you could please advance to the next slide, please, and keep going here until we get to the north elevation. There we are. I will say that everything that I will say is with a slight caveat. I did meet with the homeowners last night, and they would really like to add muntins to all of the windows that we're seeing right here. We're showing casement windows with a transom over top. So they requested the addition of muntins. Wasn't able to revise that and get this in for review in time for that. But conceptually, what we are looking at for the new construction here is a horizontal hardy plank material painted white with white window trim, black sashes in jambs for the windows themselves. That hardy plank is proposed to wrap around the entire structure. We have a copper colored standing seam roof at this front bay protrusion that is shown here on the north elevation of the home. And I think that we might get the best idea of the feel and the character if you wouldn't mind advancing to the couple renderings showing the front of the house as well. Showing this hardy plank material wrapping around the entire home here. And here the home is shown in context right here with the surrounding single family home to the east, side, as well as an existing townhome to the west. So the white hardy plank wraps the entire home. We have a black horizontal trim that forms a band kind of unifying the entire home around the entirety of the perimeter. The standing seam metal roof in a copper color at the front bay. All windows are proposed to be wood clad. And let's see here, the front entry portico as well, we're proposing at that gable form to go with a standing seam copper material there as well. And so what I can do is I can walk through the revision or the proposed alterations to the existing structure, and then as any questions come up, we can walk through and just go back and forth between the slides here. Carl, if you wouldn't mind advancing to the existing home elevations, please. I think they should be sequentially just a couple slides in advance here, a couple of slides next. And keep going here. So this, one of the pieces of feedback that I'll note, this is showing the existing home here. There are some additional pieces of architectural ornament that will be added in and shown. Some spindles at the entryway, some decorative cornice or corbelling as well that occurs at the front of the house. Actually met on site yesterday with a local historian named Tim Barrett, and Tim and the homeowners and I met on site to speak about color schemes and the appropriateness of alterations, etc. But what we're showing here is the existing front of the house is going to be fully restored. It's currently sided in wood. We're proposing to restore all architectural ornament, any historical detail. Fortunately, all of it exists on the front of the house, and so that would be the portion that would be visible from the from Clinton as you're seeing it past the homeowner's new proposed construction. And if you wouldn't mind advancing, please, to the subsequent elevations here, and they will just show the current elevations as well as the proposed modifications to the rear of the house that faces Vine Court. And right here, we're showing some photos of the existing condition of the home. We're working through color schemes right now. We've engaged the Cleveland Restoration Society as well as Tim Barrett for some recommendations on historically appropriate colors for the home. But right now we were looking at kind of replacing in kind all of the existing wood siding would be scraped, repaired, repainted as necessary to restore the original siding on the house. Any modifications that occur along the rear of the house would utilize wood siding as well, so that everything looks purposeful and contiguous around the house. And then if you wouldn't mind advancing again, there are a few photos showing the existing condition off of Vine Court and some sketches showing the proposed modifications. So as you can see right here, the form of the existing home and the portion proposed to be removed. And then the next couple slides show this from the opposite angle here. I will add as well that as Mr. Barrett and I walked the site and noted the original form of the house, as a quick aside, the home was actually moved from Tillman Avenue originally it was moved in the 1960s to where the current Garrett Morgan School sits on Detroit Avenue. It was moved to this site in the 60s. Mr. Barrett's assessment is that with the move, that kind of appendage that we're proposing to remove was most likely not part of the original home as well. And so just as another bit of information right here, the removal of this is likely a portion that was added later, and we're just proposing to remove this to add access and be able to utilize this structure maintain it on the site right here. And we will be adding some additional ornaments, some overhangs and such over top of the garage doors on the southern portion of the site right here. And I believe that concludes the presentation. So look forward to feedback and commentary that we can answer any questions and react to.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Madam Chair, I don't see Donna Gregonis in the participant list, so I don't think she's with us today. And I do not have a written report. So they did not take action on this, but at the moment, I don't know what their recommendations were.
Jason, do you have any feedback just to help us understand if there was what their questions and comments were?
Absolutely. So regarding the new construction, the drawings that we saw today are a reaction actually to the commentary that we received from Ohio City's concept review. And the comments that were received previously, we had some board and batten siding. The form and size of the front bay was a little bit larger. We had 4/4, a 4/4 Muntin configuration for the windows for the front house. All of those comments were taken into consideration with the new construction home that we saw today. We're just going to have a cross configuration with the Muntin on the lower portion of the window. The overall commentary centered around simplifying the design. So we eliminated the vertical board and batten to streamline and really kind of provide some continuity or some contiguousness with the horizontal siding rather than having some truncated materials. Also then shrinking the bay form to kind of distinguish itself, as well as adding some additional trim, and as well as also from the front facade of the house, the principal facade, we initially had some spandrel solid hardy panels between the first and second floor windows, which was removed to simplify the overall look of the home. The general commentary for the new construction home centered around simplifying it a little bit to kind of quiet it and make it a little bit more cohesive. Regarding the rear home, the commentary was received to add some gables, some overhangs over top of the garage doors that are being proposed to be added, as well as some lighting to the rear of the house. Whenever we return to landmarks, we'll be showing lighting for both the new construction as well as the existing home itself, and then also adding in the architectural ornament just to make sure that the committee is able to view it in elevation as well, so that they can react to it. But that was generally the feedback that was received from Ohio City's design review last week.
Perfect. Thanks, Jason.
No problem.
We'll move on to then questions and comments from the commission. Questions or comments from the commission? Go ahead, Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, we'll stay on this elevation. What is the foundation material?
That will be poured in place concrete.
All right, so there's no embossing, or there's no, simulated brick or anything like that within that?
Not at the moment. We intend to provide some landscaping cover to really kind of shield the foundation from the principal elevation. We're adhering to side yard setbacks, but the nature of the block here is that the home is pretty close to the adjacent structures. So we're proposing to provide landscaping at the front of the house, and the sides will mostly be visually hidden just because of the adjacencies of the existing structures.
Okay, I understand. And I heard you talking about the mutton configuration. You talked about 4/4. Were these originally designed as double hung as opposed to casement?
Yes, they were proposed as double hung. The homeowners requested a casement with a transom over top, so that they could have some privacy with the casement window whenever that's closed, and then bring natural light in over top. And then we're proposing just a simple, it would be just a cross Muntin configuration for all windows that we're seeing, any window into home. But the windows that we're seeing right now will just have a simple cross, so it would be a cross with a transom over top.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to look. I think given the form of this house, personally, I think the double hung windows would be more appropriate. And I don't understand your comment at all about privacy. I don't see what the difference is between a casement window and a double hung in terms of providing privacy.
Sure. And if the homeowner is on the call, what they would our comment was, or their comment to me was, they'd like blinds to be drawn on the lower portion of the window with no blinds or anything at the transom portion to allow light to filter into the house, but with blinds or some sort of shading at the windows themselves.
Okay, I understand that, and there's a variety of window treatments that could be applied on the interior that can accomplish that. But so personally, I'd prefer to see the double hung windows, and I think that the owner could still achieve the level of privacy and light transmission that they're looking for just through various window treatments. And personally, I don't see the need to change material type for that, the roof over the bay and that entrance vestibule. Personally, I would like to just see the consistency of a architectural shingle as opposed to the standing seam. I don't see the need to change the material.
Yeah, that was so a question for you as well. We can alter the window type to is a double hung showing a 2/2 configuration. If that would be more historically appropriate. I do know in my conversations with Tim Barrett that was the original type of window that was in the existing home and would have been common along the street right here. So we could achieve a 2/2 with a double hung with the sash dividing the overall opening in half, essentially. If that would be something that it would be more historically appropriate. If the committee feels that it's necessary to move away from a casement with transom over top.
Yeah, and my comment is based on the form of the house. You know, we're not trying to make, that's not the goal. But I just think it's more appropriate given the form of this house. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Got it. And the only other response that I have as well, it was strictly the homeowner's preference for the change of material on the bay and the entry portico. They have an affinity for the material and the color, and that's why it's included, and it's differentiated from the overall roof form as well.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. I will put my comments out there while I wait for others to raise their hand. I personally don't mind the copper. I think it's a nice addition. I'm assuming the image that was after this was maybe the first proposal. No, that's the back. Okay, so I like how you've simplified the elevations. I would agree with Ms. Strickland's comments that I'm not the biggest fan of the casement windows because you've gone through the effort of trying to make this historically appropriate, and a double hung would be more appropriate. Okay. And I'm at a loss right now, and I apologize. My brain's just not working. If you could do the offset size versus like a 2/4 or 2/6, so that it's more of the 1/3, 2/3 proportion. If that's their desire, I personally have them in my own house.
Gotcha.
And for that reason, where the anal people like myself, having your shades aligned with your bottom sash. So from the outside, one sash is fully shaded versus the upper sash not having that intermediate sort of lines. Maybe a direction you could go that would achieve what the owner's looking for from a
Mhm.
functionality, but keep you in the architecturally appropriate manner. Tim could, answer better if that would be historically appropriate for this house.
Got it.
And just trying to, but a double hung, I think, would be more appropriate, either a 2/2, as you mentioned, or something, in a double hung family.
Got it.
Because even your doors are historically appropriate, but the casement is a modern, interjection. And then, my
Absolutely.
only comment would be about the window in the eave feels from your renderings to be a little small, especially compared to as you look at the proportions of your existing house and its, window and its eave, and or the adjacent house, the sizing of windows. It feels a little small and not as fitting as maybe, rectangular window or something else.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I agree with both your comments and Mr. Strickland's comments about the windows. I feel that the casement windows will make the house look like one of those bad remodeling of the month. I just don't think it works for the style of the house. And it is a northern exposure, so you're not going to be getting a lot of direct sunlight. I want to mention that, like Madam Chair, I have the 1/3, 2/3 windows, and that you can probably achieve window coverings on that lower sash, get that privacy that the owner is looking for. I also agree that I like the round window at the top, but I think it's out of proportion. I think it's too small. I think if you enlarge that, I think it's a nice feature. I know in my house at one time there was an oval window at the top, which unfortunately is missing, but I think it creates some interest, and I just would like to see it a little bit larger.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Julie,
Julie,
you're
muted.
There you go. Sorry. You can see why I'm muted right now. I'll hold my comments. Other comments from the Landmarks Commission? Okay, so cottage sash is the name of the windows that are the 1/3 over 2/3. Sorry, I have a little dog background noise today. And then, so related to, so we've spoken about the front elevation. Could you go to the rear elevation, Carl? So I think the same would apply here, and the question would be, if the owner's open to changing to double hung, I would recommend doing it for the entire house.
Absolutely.
So that and it does keep the entire design cohesive, and potentially introducing a transom over your door so that those proportions feel aligned with the rest of the design of the house.
Absolutely.
And having all of those match. And then could you go to the rear house, Carl? That looks, yeah. So could you go to the rear elevation of the house? Okay. And I would just encourage you to look at these windows. Are these the same size as the windows in the rest of the house, or are these a different size?
The goal is to match the size. I believe that these are the same size. We tried to keep the exact same the window rhythm across. A side note, we will be adjusting these to 2/2, and that was another bit of commentary that was received in the Ohio City Design Review last week. So I will ensure that the windows along the southern portion of the house match in scale to those along the rest of the home. and as well, all of the windows are proposed to be 2/2 as well.
Okay. I think the pattern would be, good and look at, I would encourage you to maybe look at a 3/3, so a wider window, but in the same proportion versus 2 windows almost, adjacent to each other, but not, muttoned together. That might be, more successful for the interior and exterior. Because right now it feels a little like the windows are pushed a little too wide for me personally.
Got it.
Like they either want to come in closer to each other, or the windows or the proportion of the windows may want to be reduced some. So it feels more cohesive rather than aligned, in the design. That's my
Got it.
personal
And
feeling.
then we will be adding lighting and an overhang over top of the doors as well. So we will show that upon our return too.
Okay, I think that will really help in make this more of a cohesive elevation with the existing building design.
Excellent. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Bailey?
I like that you're doing research, studying the color and history of the existing building. So thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands go up. Do you feel like you received enough feedback to, continue the design and come back for your final?
I absolutely do, and want to thank everybody for their great feedback.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We look forward to seeing you back here in the near future with your final design.
Alrighty. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. We'll move on to our last concept review. And sorry, I didn't say it, since it's concept review, we're not voting. We will just be giving feedback. The same for this applicant. Located at 5000 Euclid Avenue, renovation of East Wing. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function? You can unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Hi, I'm Jesse Swigert. I am the project manager for this presentation here, which is the Agora East Wing renovation. I'm with LDA Architects, and this part of the renovation. So I think, as you know, the Agora Theater next door was recently renovated. The rest of the complex is under a separate ownership group, and this is going to be a phased project, receiving state and federal historical tax credits. This is a 60-month phased project with Shippo, and the first part of this that we're focused on is what we're considering the East Wing, which is kind of the portion behind the sign attached to the old radio tower in the back. Our period of significance for this project is the era of which WHK occupied the property, so about between the 50s and 70s. Next slide, please. So here's the East Wing is to the right in this photo here. The tower, what we refer to as the towers, in the foreground there, the 4-story portion, and then the left side is what we call the West Wing. The East Wing, which is the focus of our renovation, and on top of the color scheme of the building, is where WHK recording studios used to be and where they used to broadcast the radio signals. And we're converting this space into a new office space. And part of this scope too will be renovating a portion of the courtyard as well. Some of the things like the signage you see in the back of the building, the parking lot, and renovations to the West Wing and the tower will be for future phases that we're still working on some details with Shippo and ensuring we get awarded state tax credits. The East Wing did receive state tax credits. You can see the portion above the second story is painted on the back of the building. The lower portion will remain brick, and the East and West Wing were also painted. The back of the building is a EFIS coating, which will remain EFIS and be repaired and patched. The cracks and some of the areas where the moisture got in will be repaired, and the whole back will be repainted. Go to the next slide. This is the site plan. So here you can see the portion of the courtyard we're touching, which is the eastern part of it. The canopy will remain as is for this phase and future phases to comply with Shippo guidelines. The parking lot, again, some renovations to the parking lot will be considered in the future phases. And there you can kind of see the breakdown of the different portions of the site project there. Next slide, please. This is just kind of some office plans for reference. One of the main goals of this project is to bring in more natural light into the space. As recording studios, they're very kind of dark and insular spaces, so we have very limited opportunities to do it on the facade since to meet our kind of Shippo guidelines that we received. So a lot of natural light will come in through skylights, as well as some new openings along the west facade of the east wing will also be provided for new door openings and some more natural light. You can go down one more slide. Also part of the scope of work is creating a rooftop deck on the northern portion of the east wing, which will include a new penthouse and a patio for about 49 people up on the roof. The penthouse will be clad in a thin brick that will get painted to match the rest of the building, specifically the color used on the tower behind it. So that way it kind of blends in a little bit more as well. It's situated on the northern side just to kind of keep the sight lines minimal from Prospect Avenue. On to the next slide. Here are some conceptual renderings of the colors that we are looking at. So the majority of the field will be the copper Roycroft red. The Prospect elevation, the vertical bands that were at a dark gray before will become that lighter Chelsea gray. And the courtyard facade on the east and west will be the darker Westchester gray to kind of play off the WHK color scheme as it is now. And you can also see some of the skylights on the roof deck in this rendering as well. If you want to go to the next slide. As I said, the canopy and some of the other stuff will be, and the new sign will be future phases. So you can kind of see the color scheme here. So the tower becomes the Roycroft red as well as the facade closest to Prospect Avenue. And just a close look of the tower facade and the penthouse we're adding up to there. Again, it'll be painted to match the tower to kind of help with kind of blending with the rest of the tower and make it less visible from the street. The railings would be painted to kind of match the kind of rusted gray look of the fire escapes in the back to also kind of help match with that aesthetic back there. This is a view of the courtyard, so you can see the kind of barreled canopy would remain, and we would add some more patio space and windows on the east side of the courtyard or the west facade of the east wing. So if there's any questions or comments.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Is there feedback from the local committee?
Madam Chair, this was reviewed by the Euclid Corridor Design Review Committee on July 1st, and they gave it conceptual approval as presented.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll open the floor then for questions and comments from the commission. Ms. Bailey.
Okay, you made a comment that you wanted to bring natural light into the east side of the building. I understand that you have different phases of this project. So, the natural light, you mentioned the skylight. So I'm looking at the rooftop right now, and I see several skylights on the top. Is that correct? What I'm looking at right now?
That is correct. And yep. And there's also a few punched openings on the west elevation of the east wing. Gets a little confusing, the east and west wing, but so we have limited amount of punched openings that were granted by Shippo and the National Park Service for that facade. Okay. So most of our natural light is coming from skylights.
All right. So right now the existing condition is you punching in open is on the existing roof and you placing in. So I'm just wondering how, so we all know that you carefully figuring out how you can determine the skylight based on the framing of the existing condition of the roofing. how you can put the openings, holes in there, to put those skylights in. Is that how you're doing it?
Yes, and part of our condition too is the roof of the east wing is constructed of heavy timber construction. So when we cut in the skylights, we're actually going to maintain the existing the larger heavy timber beams and wrap them and express them in the skylight openings. And so we're just cutting the deck, actually. So we're expressing the existing structure of the building when we punch in the skylights. And they're placed in a way that we kind of limit that a little bit, but also kind of express that structure a bit as well.
I'm turning my mute. So I'm just wondering how you determine and how many skylight are you putting on there in order to how many light you want to bring in to bring, determine an amount of light in there.
I got you.
So how are you calculating that so you can know how many lights? Right now, I'm just seeing so many light. I'm seeing a lot of light, skylight in there. It looks clouded. So I'm just wondering how are you determining that? I'm not saying it looks bad, but I'm just wondering how you determining that.
We did a few studies, and 15%, usually when the rooms that we're trying to get the natural light into, we're looking at about 15% of the floor area as skylight opening. That was kind of our goal, to get the appropriate amount of skylight, and based on the existing ceiling height, most of it will be indirect. So there's not very much direct sunlight, but you still see plenty of blue sky from within each of the office spaces that have the skylights.
Because I also know you probably also determine it based on the interior and closer walls as well. So that's also hard to determine because you probably don't have a lot of opening spaces inside as well. I'm just speculating. I don't know the interior plan.
No, there's quite a few existing partitions that we're keeping as part of the original recording studios that we're turning into office spaces. And yeah, we're about 15% of the ratio to some of the rooms that we're trying to get natural light into or have skylights. That was kind of our magic number that we've came up with.
Excellent. Other questions, Ms. Bailey?
One more. Is this just going just to the second level? Is it also carrying down to the first floor too?
There are a few loft spaces within the building. Some of them we're able to kind of open up from one space to another, but for the most part, where we have the skylights is kind of like a 1.5 story height space. And then the lofted spaces are kind of opened up into some of the circulation spaces where we can. Otherwise, they might have their own individual lightings or independent skylight, or just relying on a few punched openings from the west facade. But most of it, I would say, is about 12.5, 14, 15 feet tall ceilings.
Excellent. Thank you for that, those questions and that feedback. Other questions or comments from the commission? Guess I'll insert mine here. I mean, I think it's a very modest, proposal of trying to bring the architecture back to its original state and trying to minimize the impact on the exterior. The railings would be the one thing that I'd have comment on. I know, it appears that it will be visible, but only from the interior of the property. Did you say that's cable rail or a pipe rail or a glass rail?
It will be a steel or aluminum rail painted, and we're kind of trying to use some of the similar narrow profiles of the fire escape railing. So what we're proposing now, we can provide more information on that too, is you can kind of see the horizontal lines that are trying to replicate some of that on the fire escapes there. And then between the horizontals, we would have like a McNichols type of infill panel to meet the guardrail requirements to try to keep that minimal.
Okay. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to, has Shippo reviewed and commented on your rails?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll defer to Shippo what they'll approve, because obviously they are very particular of what they will approve or not approve. I know glass is usually preferred, but in this case, since it's such an interior roof deck, it sounds like they're open to other materials. And besides that, I really don't have much feedback. I think the windows on were those also determined in a way by Shippo of what they would accept and not accept for windows?
Yes, they made their comments and critiques on the size and the amount of openings on the sides. Right now, our manufacturer that we have approved is a Quaker H series window with
Okay,
a
that's
fixed
right.
over an awning type, which was approved by Shippo. And then I think we had the window color on the slideshow here as well.
Perfect. Okay. Well, then, if once again, obviously that I'll not go against what they said in the respects that if the windows seem to be appropriate where you've placed them. So I have no further comments on this one.
Just to go back to the railings again, what we kind of wrote in our part 2 and what got approved is that the railings for the roof deck will match and mimic kind of the style of the fire escape railings. So again, that's the design intent there, and that's what Shippo signed off on.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. And then, have you done any sightline studies of the new deck and the penthouse?
We did with the renderings. If you kind of go back to, I think some of the one from Prospect. If you go back one more, there's one I think in the middle. Go back to the renderings. We could provide a black and white drawing if that helps as well. One more. Yeah, that one. So there you can see a little bit of the top of the penthouse there. If you were to zoom in a little bit, but the railings would be obscured from Prospect Avenue. So you're just catching a little bit of the penthouse, which again will be clad in brick, which would then get painted to match the tower.
Okay. And they reviewed and approved this?
Yes.
Okay. That is helpful. So I guess that concludes my comments. Other questions or comments from the commission?
Do you have any detailed information on, well, this is just a concept. Do you have colors on the skylights? Is it going to match the colors that we see up here? That you have to paint color for the skylights?
That's a good question. Our goal would be for them to match the window color. So we will pull that color selection out and include that on the next presentation.
Any additional questions or comments? Right, well, I think your presentation is going in the right direction. Besides a few comments that we've made, do you feel you've received enough feedback from the commission to continue development and return to us with your final proposal?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you. We look forward to seeing you come back in the near future with the final presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our concept plan reviews. We'll move on to our Cleveland landmark nominations.
Madam Chair, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today. Julia LaPlaca is a former Ohio History Corps member who worked in our office 2.5 years ago. She prepared the nomination for us then, and she is currently a PhD student at the University of Michigan. We're also joined today by Jenny Spencer, the council member from Ward 15, and Heather Lazar, her assistant, and also Nikki Hudson, who's active in the neighborhood and who was also instrumental in doing a lot of the initial research, and is a very concerned citizen who loves this bridge and supports our nomination as well. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. We look forward to hearing the presentation.
Great. Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Great. Well, it's so nice to be back at the Landmarks Commission. And I'm so pleased that this project has come so far. And I will be shouting out Nikki throughout this project because we really worked on this together and wrote it together and worked on the National Registry questionnaire that was submitted for this structure together. So thank you, Nikki. But I'll go ahead and just describe the bridge, give a little bit of its history, and then and a little bit about the architect. So this is the Lake, we're calling it the Lake Avenue Bridge, but it is a working railroad bridge built in 1912. We can go ahead to the next slide. So it's a through plate girder deck bridge, almost entirely encased in iron with concrete abutments and wing walls. The date of construction is actually inscribed on the south wall. The interior underneath the bridge, there's 10 piers made of vertical steel beams. And these beams, the iron is actually very decorative. So there's regular, oh, we can go to the next slide, regular rivet work. The piers look a little bit like columns. They have a base and something of a pediment running along the inside of the bridge. The top frieze has an arabesque bracketed cornice detail, which kind of lets in some beautiful light. And then there were lamps. So this kind of octagonal, perhaps, post that's just hanging out there used to have a lamp post attached to it coming down. As for what's going on top of the bridge, there were 4 service lines once originally, but the northernmost line was removed. And of the remaining 3, the Norfolk Southern Railroad only uses 2. So this bridge has plenty of historical and architectural significance. We can go to the next slide. It has originally served as a southern entrance to Edgewater Park. So underneath the 41 on the 1898 map, that's where the grade crossing was for this railroad. And originally it was the streetcars went underneath these stone tunnels, and they were stone. And it turned out that this was actually very dangerous. So there was an uproar from the community that it was very dangerous for pedestrians trying to cross, near the park where people would be walking in. We can go to the next slide. So there was a little bit of outrage about the bridge, and there was a plan to do away with the old stone to tunnel design and do something a little bit modern and safer. And at this point in the bridge's history, even before it's built, we get a little glimpse into an interesting partnership in infrastructure creation between the city of Cleveland, the railroad, and concerned citizens. At first, the first plans for the bridge were considered too plain for something close to Edgewater Park. And the city came back and said, no, we want to do something fancier. So there was extra ornamentation budgeted. So an additional $10,000 was paid for by the railroad. So 65% of the $10,000 by the railroad, 35% of the city to make this bridge more spectacular because it was going to be attached to Edgewater Park. So with this, with these grand designs for this fancy bridge, the city brought in Frederick Stribinger, the architect, to design the bridge. We can go to the next slide. Stribinger has did a lot of work in Cleveland. So the House of Wills, we'll see in the next slide, the Tremaine Gallagher House in Cleveland Heights. He's responsible for all of this. And in the end, he designed the bridge, and it went up in 1912. We can go back, Carl, just a couple of slides so we can look at the bridge yeah, that's fine. Stribinger was active in the Beaux-Arts style. He was the first Cleveland architect to go to France and be educated in the School of the Beaux-Arts in France. And he kind of brought that back to Cleveland and was very active in Cleveland's architecture circles in the early 20th century. So the combination of modern materials like steel combined with these kind of an eclectic, gathering all different kind of architectural styles is very typical of his work and of the Beaux-Arts style, which dovetailed very nicely with the City Beautiful campaigns going on in Cleveland at the time, which were trying to elevate the city through the use of beautiful and functional infrastructure. Okay, so here we see it in the early 1900s, and we can go to the next slide. Bumping forward a little bit in time in 1946, and then a little bit about, we can go to the next slide. And here you can see what the lamppost originally looked like. This now and then picture is indicative that the bridge is in still fairly good shape. It's just, worse for wear given the ravages of time. And of course, the beautiful lamps are no longer extant. But zooming forward to the even more recent history, Nikki and I began working on this bridge in 2019 or something like that. And we submitted a National Registry questionnaire, and Shippo deemed the structure eligible. If someday if someone wanted to take it to the National Registry, it could go. So that was a great step forward. And members of the Friends of Lake Avenue Bridge, of which Nikki is a member, have been active in doing some cleanup around the bridge. Trash gets stuck under there, etc. So there have been some beautification initiatives, cleaning up, and last I heard, don't quote me on this, maybe a potential for some sort of public art installation, but that would be Tara and Nikki's job, not mine. So with all of that said, we've got a structure that has both historical integrity with its connection to a well-known Cleveland architect, connection to the City Beautiful movement in Cleveland, an interesting chapter in the history of railroad and city and citizen collaboration, and a really lovely structure in a really beautiful part of Cleveland. So that's all I have for today. And I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Tara, Petrus?
Hi, first I want to say it's great to see you, Julia. It's been a long time. This is great news. I did have a question. We are in the process of creating mural work on the wing walls of the bridge. And I wanted to know if this landmark status would affect our ability. It won't be on the actual bridge, but the wing walls on either side of the bridge. So I wanted to see if this landmark status would affect our ability to still be able to follow through with that.
Don or Carl want to weigh in?
It's a good question. We would have to review any proposal like that. I wouldn't want to comment before I saw the concept or the proposal, but it's, given the condition of the underside of the bridge, I think it's something that might enhance that space. I'm not so sure about the wing walls, but that's something we would definitely want to discuss with you in the future.
And how it's installed too. I would assume would be part of that conversation, a permanent on the walls versus a element attached to the walls, like some of the other installations I believe have happened in Tremont under the bridges or Ohio City. Probably also impacts the review of it in a good way.
It's a future project that we would bring to you all later. It initially was supposed to happen last year, but with the pandemic and then the upcoming streetscape project, the original artist backed out. So we're going to be revisiting this after the streetscape is complete.
Excellent. Michelle or Giancarlo, questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. I guess I have several comments. One is that I'm always concerned about maintenance. I mean, this bridge actually has already been considerably violated historically by the replacement of instead of caring for the sandstone, the original sandstone, and maintaining it to the point where it became a danger, and then it was simply removed and replaced by poured concrete. That really did not solve the issue of some form of permanent maintenance and caring for this bridge. And as Donald mentioned, it already, it definitely needs some work currently. Some of the steel, the paint has been peeling off. Some of it is rusty. I mean, it's a beautiful bridge, and it's a fantastic addition to the entire area that's happening there, the development of Edgewater Park and what's been done in the last 10, 15 years in that area. But my concern always is, that, and then it was just mentioned, we were already talking about a mural. Honestly, murals is another form of paint, and I'm not sure how that really relates to an historical landmark structure such as this one. So what is the maintenance program? You mentioned some kind of a cooperation between the city of Cleveland and the railroad company, and yet nothing has been done in the last 40, 50, 60 years as far as maintaining this bridge and heading it to the community in good health and continuing good health. Any comments on that, please?
I can't speak to the oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, would Councilwoman Spencer like to respond to that?
Sure, I sure would. Thank you so much. And it's really a pleasure to be here today. I wanted to also, before I respond to the question, just note that this has really been a long time coming. And I think, as many of you know, I've been on Cleveland City Council since November 2020. This effort to get us to this moment of this nomination far preceded that. And Julia, I've heard so much about you. It's really a pleasure to meet you via WebEx. And thank you for returning to Cleveland via WebEx today to do this. And I echo the many comments about resident Nikki Hudson and the advocacy group. So it's really, I'm standing on many shoulders here today, and it's my pleasure to be in the capacity as council member supporting this nomination. Secretary Pettit, I want to apologize. I sent my support letter this morning just under the wire, so I wanted you to have that for your records in terms of my point of view on this. But these issues of the aesthetic and historic character of the bridge and the integrity of the structure are inextricably linked. So at the end of the day, what we're really experiencing here is demolition by neglect. Because there has been no maintenance plan for this bridge, you have both the inextricable chipping away, that loss of the historic elements, those aesthetic elements that make this so striking. And frankly, this cannot be also, the fact that its location is as critical, I think, to its historic significance. It has always been a gateway to Edgewater Park. It remains a gateway to Edgewater Park. Really, this nexus between Edgewater Park and the Gordon Square Arts District, a heavily traveled corridor. But what we've been experiencing is that the owner, Norfolk Southern Corporation, has not had a maintenance plan. Their plan seems to consist of reacting when there is risk of liability. The community has brought falling debris to the attention of the railroad. There have been sort of intermediary measures taken. They've installed a plywood undergirding to try to prevent chunks from falling onto the sidewalks that are on the north and south sides, but it's really been nothing permanent. We have other folks in the city working to ask the railroad to also address the drainage issues. My predecessor on council, Councilman Zone, invested $150,000 or even more into trying to aesthetically improve this heavily traveled pedestrian corridor. But because there is no functioning drainage system, mud and debris flows down the walls of the bridge and onto the walkway. So you have, again, this is inextricably linked. You have the loss of these historic elements that Julia so beautifully highlighted and explained, these things that if they're lost to time, they will be lost forever, coupled with the fact that this is a heavily traveled pedestrian corridor. The city is about to make a $3.6 million investment in resurfacing, beautification, and traffic calming on Lake Avenue. There is a total over the past decade, $200 million of public investment in the immediate area, ranging from Edgewater Park, the Shoreway conversion, Clifton Boulevard, the Gordon Square Arts District. You have all of these public entities that have made significant investments. And this is really stands out as a completely neglected piece of infrastructure amidst all of the other investment. So Norfolk Southern, I think their lack of interest in investing in this bridge has become even more apparent as the amount of stewardship in the surrounding community has increased. So I think what we're hoping here, and I don't know, Secretary Pettit, if you would agree with the assessment. I don't know if the owner, who happens to be the railroad, will be happy with our nominate. I hope the Landmarks Commission will support the nomination. We can keep moving forward with next steps. In the event that the railroad does not support it, then accordingly, other next steps will be taken. But at the end of the day, we need a better line of communication and some channels with Norfolk Southern, because otherwise what has been happening and what will continue to happen is, as I stated, demolition by neglect. It is a piecemeal dismantling of this bridge. If there are pieces that have bent away or falling off, the railroad shows up, they remove those pieces, and those pieces are lost to history forever. And so we absolutely need a mechanism with which we can more constructively work with this owner and get the investment for this historic structure, not only for our shared history as a community, but for the fact that there are daily users who this is an active pedestrian corridor, and our citizens deserve better.
Thank you, Councilwoman, for that feedback. And I would agree. I mean, I think a partnership and maintenance plan is essential to this. And I guess that would be my question with this nomination. Does this allow us other mechanisms to really put that in place finally?
Madam Chair, this is just the first step in the process. This is the nomination of the structure as a landmark. We have not yet approached Norfolk Southern. We have had meetings with the councilwoman about the issues with the condition and the Department of Engineering and Construction. We landmark things for a lot of reasons, and in this case, the maintenance and lack of maintenance and the condition of the bridge were the catalyst to bring this forward. But I agree that it's significant enough that it's worthy of landmarking. That's really our job today, is determine if it meets our criteria. But our next step will be to approach the railroad to seek their consent. But I agree, we need beyond consent, we also need a commitment that they're going to care for this bridge in a way that's commensurate with its historic value.
I agree. I mean, I think it's definitely worthy, in my opinion, to focus on our task at hand. I think this is a beautiful bridge. I think it's definitely worthy based on its aesthetic and its history with the architect and so forth. I live by it, drive by it, and have always admired it. So I think it's a great nomination. Ms. Anderson, you had feedback?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I used to drive through this bridge daily, and I always admired its beauty and, and its resilience. It has been neglected. It's been almost 20 years since I lived in that neighborhood, and I recall that some maintenance was done to it, but I mean, obviously that was decades ago. I have a couple questions and a couple comments. Is the railroad aware that we are nominating this bridge for landmark status?
To date, they are not aware, although it has come up in discussions prior to this. I don't think the railroad is not at this time aware. We do not always notify the owner of this step in the process. It's always been our desire to focus on the architecture and the history. Informing the owner will be the next step.
And may I jump in and just add that there is copious public record when it comes to the owner having been notified of community concerns related to both the maintenance, safety, and aesthetic considerations. There have been innumerable emails, letters, correspondence between the council office, mine, my predecessor, the city law department, and others. So there's plentiful record. Norfolk Southern is aware of a high level of community concern when it comes to this bridge. And I would venture to say they would not be surprised by the city taking this next step with a nomination.
Thank you. I have some further questions. I really appreciate all the interesting historical research that has been done on this bridge. It's just fascinating. So I have a historic structure geek question here. The prior bridge was the sandstone tunnels, which are reminiscent of the sandstone bridges on Martin Luther King Boulevard. I had heard at one point that Charles Schweinfurth, the architect that designed the tunnels on Martin Luther King Boulevard, also had designed a bridge at this location. And I was just wondering if that was uncovered in any of the research, who designed the original tunnels.
It would be awesome if I could find out that these now demolished double tunnels had been built by Schweinfurth. I'm not sure. He did build the bridge over West Boulevard. So the one that's kind of castellated on one side and has some kind of turret-like elements. He did design that one. And other bridges in, Brooklyn Park and the ones in the cultural gardens for sure. Wouldn't surprise me if he did this one too, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it would be the same client. That's the same bridge.
Right. And he did many bridges.
Yes, he did.
And if I may add to this as well, we have a separate line of correspondence will be going to Norfolk Southern about what we refer to as the West Boulevard Bridge, which is the Schweinfurth Bridge. Because it is within a historic district, it's within a local landmark district. It is my understanding that it already has some protection. There are maintenance concerns with that bridge as well. And it is my understanding that the railroad's intent was to maintain that bridge by removing stone, just doing away with it, which is not appropriate. So that is already, I believe, while it's not an individual landmark because it's within a local landmark district, that bridge does enjoy some protections. And both are in Ward 15 and both are very much on my radar, and Secretary Pettit's as well.
Yes, we are in the process of approaching Norfolk Southern about the West Boulevard Bridge and the issues there.
Is the small little one off of where the Baltic and Clifton also being considered and looked at? Sorry, off subject, but related to that.
The tunnel, the like one way
tunnel.
Oh, good point.
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to look at online what's the name of the street, because I just noticed the tunnel too. That's all I know.
It's near Desmond, yeah. And Nikki Hudson, who may even know more than me.
It's like it's at the corner where Baltic and Clifton all come together across the tunnel, across from the gas station, or next to it is the one that I'm referring to. They're all railroad, bridges, but if you're talking about additional ones, that one should also be looked at because that is a very unusual bridge.
Thank you, I concur.
West 89th Street. West 89th Street, I think is.
Sorry, it's at West 95th. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. The tunnel is at West 95th and Desmond, and it is very, very similar to the double tunnel structure that originally stood that you can see in the picture that's on the screen right now. I haven't come across anything about that bridge, but perhaps there's something could still turn up.
Very interesting.
I think it still has its brick paving too, underneath it.
It does.
Which is cool.
Ms. Anderson, did you have additional questions?
Yeah, I just want to add that if there's any kind of mural or painting proposed for the walls adjacent to that bridge, I would want to see anything there be modest and demure to the structure itself. I think the focus should be the metal bridge and the beautiful design of that bridge. There's a lot of subtlety to that bridge that I don't want to be overwhelmed by some, bold, colorful mural. I think that we need to keep this bridge the focus of anything that is done in that location. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Michelle. We'll keep that in consideration when we go back and revisit what's going to be done on the wing walls. And just for you all's information also, when Councilman Zone had first approached this, he looked at the wing walls as an opportunity to link the two communities on either side of the bridge. So, but we'll take those comments into consideration when we revisit this after the street resurfacing is complete.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Bailey, questions or comments?
Yes. Thank you, Julia, for the presentation. Could you go back to the slide that was showing the, I'm assuming that was the, right there. Did you mention the photo on the right that you, or is now, it's just not functioning? Is that where a light fixture that's supposed to be right there?
Yes, there was a light fixture that hung down out of that
Okay.
aperture. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, this is a beautiful bridge and I like the decor and decoration on it. My next question is, once the bridge was approved, for construction, do you have a timeline, how long it took for this bridge to construct?
Well, it looks like it was probably within 2 years because there are plain dealer articles from 1910 where they're still in the planning process. And then we know it was built by 1912.
Well, thank you again. I'm in favor of nominating this due to the just all this great architecture feature and the detail up in the upper left corner. That's great. That's safe. I just hate to see this, just go to waste or whatever. Just need to get saved. But thank you very much for this beautiful presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Mr. Bonesi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was really excited when I saw this come up because I have, I go over that way a lot. I have a very important friend of mine who lives over on Edgewater Street, and I've always admired this bridge. And actually, as I've been chiming or listening to everyone's comments, I've been obsessively going around Google Maps looking at bridges. And something I really start to notice is the complete uniqueness of this bridge, not only to its placing in Cleveland, right? I have not been able to find anything else like this bridge, but also in, I travel a lot, and the timing of when this bridge came out, and if you think about in the transition period of what's happening in America around the 1912s, right? To go from, there's a complete industrialization, and the bridge is indicative of the immediate crossroads between detail and oriented types of processes, and then industrialization and, where things became just really simplified. And I think it's at that crossroads is that the bridge really tells a magnificent story of its time and place too, right? Where we still kind of had this admiration for detail and this admiration for quality and the subtle nuances of the bridge, but it's also done in a way that speaks to what was happening in Cleveland, right? 1912s, industrialization, it's a booming time for the city. And it's partially sad to see what's happened to the bridge. So I completely support moving forward, and this is where my expertise falls apart. I don't know how these legal matters move forward, but I think the bridge needs to be addressed and saved, and I just would hate to see it go any further into ruin, especially something so unique, not only just to Cleveland, but to kind of like a canon of that architectural period, and it could be used as a really great case study. So I like the bridge.
Excellent, great. Thank you for that feedback. Other questions or comments related to Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm heavily in favor of the nomination of this bridge for landmark status. My question, and I'm not sure if there's anyone on this as part of this conference that can answer this, but at least I'll raise the point and maybe it can be investigated. But currently an infrastructure bill is being debated in the Congress, and it looks like it's going to come out in 2 phases and provide substantial infrastructure funding. In the first phase, $40 billion being set aside for railroad infrastructure. And I'm just wondering what the mechanism is to provide notice to the regulatory authorities in terms of setting priorities within individual states for the utilization of these infrastructure funds. So I would say, based on this conversation, it would be totally appropriate to advise the regulatory authorities of the priority that should be assigned to this bridge, and see if some of that infrastructure funding could be allocated specifically to the rehabilitation of this bridge. So I don't know if anyone on this conference can add additional insights to that question.
Mr. Strickland, I will just, this is Jenny Spencer speaking. I will just chime in to say that although I do not know the ins and outs of the bill and its requirements, I think one challenge we've been facing with this bridge is sort of where is the nexus between human health and safety, as well as functioning. You know, from the railroad's perspective, this bridge, because they are able to use it for commerce and for transportation of goods, from the railroad's perspective, this bridge does not need repair. And yet, if you go beneath the tracks, the pedestrian experience is inexcusably bad, and we are losing all of the beautiful historic elements because they are sheathing. They're not the metalwork, this fine metalwork. When it deteriorates and falls down, it's dangerous for pedestrians, but it doesn't inhibit the railroad from running rail cars over the tracks. So I don't know what the infrastructure bill would say. I would hope that we need to make sure that the structural soundness of this bridge is maintained, that the drainage issues are addressed. But I do believe that regardless, Norfolk Southern would need to go above and beyond what it has been willing to do in terms of what it views as maintenance of this bridge, because I think if successful, this nomination will state that the community no longer views a dismantling and removal of the metalwork to constitute effective maintenance. So I appreciate you bringing that up. That is now, that's on my radar in terms of any opportunity Cleveland City Council has to communicate infrastructure priorities, especially when any such infrastructure is within a landmarked district or as an individually landmarked structure. So thank you.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how they set up those priorities. And functionality is one consideration, but the maintenance of these beautiful historic structures certainly should be given equal value, I think.
Well, because not just above the bridge is below for cars and pedestrians. That needs to be safe. Other questions or comments from the commission? Giancarlo?
Yeah, I mean, one of the major issues that I mean, at one point, the railroad construction in this country was really a very important architectural and design element, as we can see from this bridge. Recently, the railroads seem to care less about what's happening in the local communities as they just breeze right through. I have a building on East 55th Street, and I'm surrounded by railroad property, and there are trees falling under my tree. And it took me a month to track down a phone number throughout North America. And finally they said, well, we're not really subject to local community law. So if you wanted the tree falling on your building removed, you go ahead and do that. So there's this, I mean, actually, as Robert indicated, it's really almost a whole new industry as far as the railroads participating in local communities, and basically they seem to be subjected to federal laws which go back to the 19th century, and there should be some strong position by the local communities in Cleveland in this case to make them more responsible for what's going on, because if the bridge collapses, they'll just build it's collapsing in Cleveland. So I think the idea of maintenance, the idea of carrying, and Cleveland has so many, as does Pittsburgh and the area around where we live, literally hundreds of these amazing bridges that eventually currently are part of the community and eventually may be historical landmarks, and that there has to be some leadership position as far as the community is concerned to access, a stronger form of information and maybe even these funds that are available for the restoration of these bridges. So it's an interesting issue, and I think it's a beautiful bridge, and I'm totally in favor of recognizing it as a landmark. But we always get stuck with what do we do with these beautiful buildings, and so some form of maintenance, some form of active participation from the people who actually own these buildings is. So if this building were owned by someone in the city of Cleveland, it would probably, the owner of that building would probably have been condemned and cited for years as far as negligence is concerned. But because they're owned by the railroads, they seem to get away with whatever they feel like getting away with. And that's just my comment. Thank you.
I will say the railroad has changed ownership. So it's like with every ownership change, that's a new owner. And it has changed over the course of its long life. It wasn't the same railroad company in 1910 as it is now. And I think actually this bridge is a testament to a change in thinking about what is infrastructure and what is it supposed to do. So, and here we have an indication that, oh, this is something that's supposed to be beautiful and functional. So that's part of its historical interest too, that it represents a different way of thinking about, well, what should a railroad bridge do? Right. But that does go against the grain of 21st century thinking, I'd say.
Well, and Carl did bring up a good, comment to me in the chats that, you can expand on, Carl, is since the city of Cleveland was a stakeholder in the design and contributed to it, was full ownership just relinquished to the railroad, or does the city of Cleveland have any continuous ownership based on that investments that they could also have a say in the repairs? If not, could they? Like if it's, the deck is, the railroads and the ornamentation around the perimeter is the city of Cleveland, so that like that type of partnership to achieve everyone's goal is that this is a beautiful structure. It needs to be functional, but it also needs to, maintain its character, and because it's definitely contributed to the neighborhood over its life. With all of that said, would someone like to make a recommendation for nomination? Mr. Dreyer?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to recommend the nomination as presented.
Excellent. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Miss Trot.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to this structure moving forward in the nomination and more importantly to the future maintenance program that can really help sustain this bridge. And Julia, nice to see you again. And thank you for returning to present to us.
Yes, I'm so happy I could do it.
I think that it concludes our nominations. Administrative reports today.
Madam Chair, I just have a couple items. As you all know, we have some special meetings coming up in the next few months. The first of which is July 20th regarding the Sherwin-Williams project on Public Square and in the Warehouse District. We will be getting you more information about that meeting. It will be an in-person meeting. We have to do some notice, official notice, because it is a special meeting, and I will coordinate that with you and Vice Chair Colicchia. I realize that there's a conflict of interest for you, so we're having a meeting this afternoon internally to talk about the logistics of that meeting. It will be, right now it's planned to be in City Council committee room in City Hall, so it's an in-person meeting for the commissions and the design review committees. It will also be a hybrid meeting, so there will be a component of public involvement, which we're still working out. Just wanted to make you aware of those issues. And we also need to schedule a site visit to the Ann Wandel building, which is a commercial residential building on Lorraine Avenue around East 70th or West 70th Street. And I'll get you the address once we coordinate that. It's currently in the hands of the county land bank. And right now they are seeking its demolition. Julie, I don't know if you remember, we did a site visit to that building about maybe 5 years ago. We didn't get in the building. We have since been in the building with the county land bank, and in my opinion, it's not in as bad a shape as we thought it was at the time. But I'll keep you posted about the details for the site visit. Carl, do we have another one? Do we have to schedule too? Okay, we also have one at 5901 Detroit. It's a garage in the rear of the property, and we will get you the details about that site visit also. I think that's all I've got unless anyone has any questions.
John, will the parking garage be open for that meeting on the 20th?
It will, and we will validate your parking per the old procedure. It's been a while since we've done that.
It has, so I wasn't sure what the status was. So we just use our regular credentials to get in.
Correct. Yes. And if there are any other potential pitfalls, I will let you know. But City Hall is open again as of Tuesday, so we're open to the public. But you need to have basically you need to have some kind of an appointment to get into the building. But as long as you guys have your credentials, there's no problem.
Do we need to get Jonathan credentials?
I think that's in the works. I don't know if he has them yet, Jonathan.
Everything should be submitted. I don't know how that would get to me, but on my end, I've submitted everything I think they need.
Okay, we'll follow up with you on that just to make sure you can get in the building without a problem. You still have to wear a mask in City Hall. We're still using the COVID protocols, and I think after today and tomorrow, I'll have more information about the actual logistics of the meeting next week.
So
I'm sorry,
do we need more
in
than
2
our
weeks.
photo ID?
I'm sorry?
Do we need more than our photo ID? Is that?
No,
not
that should be enough to get you in the building.
But your badge will get you in quicker, the one we used to
Correct.
use to get in the door,
Yeah, make sure you have your badge.
or you wait in the line.
The photo ID badge, the one we had for,
Correct.
yes, okay.
Correct. Yeah.
But you can use your license also, if needed.
Okay.
And as Don said, unfortunately, I will not be leading the meetings for the Sherwin-Williams because of a conflict of interest related to my firm. But Giancarlo, I'd love to catch up to you after the meeting to chat about how, and Don, it'd be best to talk offline on the logistics and the of how the meeting will probably flow.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments on any of that? Site visits or the special meetings? All right, then we will adjourn our meeting today and see everyone in 2 weeks.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you all.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.